Hello everybody, it's me Chris at Pro-Am. Just a short one today. Obviously we had some shocking news at the weekend about Ricky Hatton. Ricky was everybody's mate, so you know I've seen a lot of tributes to him. This is just a little thing from me. Obviously when I first opened the shop 30 years ago, Ricky was just turning professional. So he wasn't famous or anything. He was in the boxing community because he was a very good amateur and senior elite champion, as we call them now, or ABA champion back in the day. So we all expected, because of his style, he'd be a decent pro. So and a few of us knew Billy Graham was giving him sort of lessons on the side while he was still an amateur, I think. But when I first opened the shop, he used to come over, like all pros, young pros, when they turn over. Even to this day, none of them have got any money. They're going to box for 3 or 4 times a year, maybe 6 if you're lucky, earn £1,000 every time they box, scrounge as much as they can get together off sponsors, and maybe have a little job somewhere. So we help out because it's hard to buy decent equipment, especially, like I always say, you need safe stuff that's going to look after your hands and your head guards, and you know, for your facial injuries and stuff. So Ricky was one of those when he first came over, you know, and so I said, well, I'll sponsor you a bit of gear like I do to most of the lads, and I used to give him gloves and bits and pieces, whatever he asked for, to be honest, because if you've ever seen him on television, he's such a nice lad, you can't say no. So, and obviously then, shortly after that, I was still an amateur coach then. His brother Matthew boxed on one of our shows against one of our top lads, and he got the win, which was a bit of a shock, to be honest. But, you know, a win's a win. And then about 8 weeks later, Matthew met our boxer again in the NABCGs, whatever you call it, you know, National Boys and Girls Clubs Association Championship, which is a good championship. And they boxed in Ellesmere Port, and we had better tactics because we knew what Matthew was going to do this time. So our lad got the win anyway. But so then I think shortly after that, Matthew turned pro as well. Now Matthew was a good pro in his own right, you know what I mean. So he was European champion, boxed Canelo and everything. So you know, I think he was he was one of the few to take Canelo the full distance early on. But so obviously then the pair of them used to come to the shop, and quite often whoever was in the gym training with them at certain points, they'd all come in the shop as well. So he pushed our brand in his own way, you know, and we ended up being friends through that. One funny story I tell a lot of people, and I'm sure a lot of people have got funny stories like that. He used to come to the shop with a Sharpie pen and he'd be signing everything. He'd grab a pair of gloves off the shelf and he'd sign it, Ricky Hatton, and I'd be chasing him down the shop going, behave your bloody, I've got to sell this stuff to make a living, you know. And he's going, I'm going to be famous, it'll be worth a lot of money one day. And I'm going, yeah, I'm sure, as you do. And I used to give them to local amateur boxing clubs to, you know, raffle off at the interval on your boxing show, get a few quid towards whatever you need for the club. And he did that quite a bit. And, yeah, that was one of them funny daft things we used to have with him. And then obviously shortly after that, I started my professional training career, and his dad Ray gave us a phone call one day. Any chance of David Burke coming over sparring Ricky at the Louvalite Club? And at the time it was only squash courts, and it was run by a lovely fella called Mr. Ted Pete. Everyone knows him in Manchester in amateur boxing. So me and David Burke rocked up for a bit of sparring, and he needed southpaw sparring because I think he was going to fight Eamon McGee. So there was just me, Billy, Ricky and Dave in the gym having a few rounds, and Ray had left a few quid, which was nice of him for David for doing a few rounds. That was the first time we did a bit of training and sparring, and I met a lot of good people through Ricky, to be honest. Not just other boxers who wanted to use our equipment because he used it. You know, I met Kerry Cage through him at a later time, because later on when Billy had a nice little stable going at the back of Kerry's gym in Hyde, we'd still come up and do a bit of sparring with various boxers I had and everything. You know, so many people. Paul Speak, another nice fella who was like Ricky's mate. I think he was like his business manager. Eventually, whenever Ricky came to the shop, Paul used to always bring him. You know, and all the photographs we've got, Paul used to always take loads of photos, and I've got there's loads of pictures of me and the lads whoever came to the gym, whoever came to the shop. If Paul was there, he'd take pictures. He was great like that. I mean, there's one here on the wall. It's in Pride of Place. It's been here for day one, and it's a picture everybody sees of Rick. He just stood there with his WBU belt. He's got a pair of the shorts we made him on, and a pair of lace-up sparring gloves that he liked. I'm sure it's been everywhere over social media the last few days or so, but it takes pride of place in our shop. Also, I think I bought a pair of gloves off eBay a couple of years ago. We have like a bit of a museum where stuff that we used to sell a lot of 20-30 years ago, it doesn't exist anymore. So if I see any of it for sale, I'll buy it and put it on display in the shop. And we used to have amateur competition gloves that were approved by AIBA back then. And somebody said to me, somebody's selling a pair of your gloves signed by Ricky Hatton on eBay. I was more interested in the gloves than the signature, because I'd seen it that many times with him. And I bought the gloves. There's a picture of him here. At first I thought about wiping his signature off him, but I'm glad I never now. Obviously they'll never be for sale or anything, but they're part of our museum. So yeah, it's one of them things. You say hello to each other and ask about each other and at shows and stuff, but you don't bump into each other for ages. I don't think I've seen him for about 18 months, maybe 2 years even. And it's always one of them, yeah, we'll have a catch up. I'll catch up with him on the next show. And it never happened, which is sad. But I've never heard anybody have a bad word to say about him, to be fair, so it's just a shock to us all. Like I say, back in them days, Manchester had a good scene. There was the Collier's mob, and then there was Ricky's group, and sometimes they intermingled. Everybody used to come and see us at the shop, from Robbie Reed. He was probably the biggest high profile one at the time, because he was WBC super middleweight world champion. He used to rock up a lot. Michael Gomez, Mike's a friend who I've not spoke to I've not physically seen him face to face for a couple of years, but we're all old friends that way. Arnie, who else is the? Everybody used to come, to be honest. You know what I mean? So it was a good thing back then. We used to give them. They all wore our shorts. If they didn't have much money, we give them gloves and equipment to train with. I mean, I never had much money, but as long as everybody was happy, we were all happy. So there you go. R.I.P. the champ, and let's give him a good send-off on his day. We'll be bringing you proper content normally, but today I thought it was fitting. We did a little tribute to Ricky, and I've got thousands of stories. I could do this for an hour or two, but leave it to his family. Let them get on with the things privately. And for all those people putting shit stories on social media, mind your own business. Right, good luck, and I'll see everybody next week.